Hey Wonderbox explorers! Today, we're diving headfirst into the wonderfully weird and wildly unbelievable corners of history. Forget your epic world wars, your grand empires crumbling, and your tales of heroic leaders. Today, we're talking about a war fought over, wait for it, a bucket. Yes, you heard that right, a bucket. Now, before you dismiss this as some made-up fable, let me assure you this is very real, very documented, and very, very Italian. We're heading back to 14th century Italy, a land of feuding city-states, simmering rivalries, and surprisingly volatile tempers. The stage is set in the Emilia-Romagna region, where two powerful cities, Modena and Bologna, stood nose to nose, like two grumpy neighbors separated by a very thin fence, or in this case, a metaphorical bucket. To understand why a bucket could ignite a war, we need a little historical context. Italy in the 1300s was a patchwork of independent city-states, each fiercely protective of its own power and fiercely suspicious of its neighbors. Think of it like a medieval version of highly competitive sports teams, except instead of just bragging rights, they were playing for actual territory, trade routes, and political dominance. Adding fuel to this fiery mix were two major political factions tearing through Italy, the Guelphs and the Ghibellines. These weren't just friendly political parties. They were more like rival gangs whose animosity went back generations. The Guelphs generally supported the Pope and his temporal power, while the Ghibellines sided with the Holy Roman Emperor. Cities and families aligned themselves with one side or the other, creating deep divisions and constant political maneuvering. Now enter our two protagonists, Modena and Bologna. Modena, proudly Ghibelline, was a staunch supporter of the emperor. Bologna, its neighbor and rival, was a Guelph stronghold, firmly on the Pope's side. These weren't just different political leanings. It was a deeply ingrained cultural rivalry, a centuries-old feud intensified by the Guelph-Ghibelline divide. They bickered over trade, border disputes, and just about anything else you could imagine. They were, in a word, itching for a fight, and this is where our bucket enters the story. In 1325, Modenese soldiers, in a daring, or perhaps just foolish raid, snuck into Guelph-controlled Bologna. Now, historical accounts differ slightly on why they were there. Some say it was simply a mischievous prank, a way to poke fun at their pompous Bolognese neighbors. Others suggest it was a more calculated act of harassment, designed to destabilize Bologna and assert Modenese dominance. Whatever the reason, they didn't just steal cattle or valuable goods. No, they went for something far more symbolic, far more petty. They brazenly marched into the main square of Bologna, right under the noses of the city guards, to the public well. And there, hanging innocently, was a wooden bucket. Now, this wasn't just any bucket. It was a municipal bucket, used for public water, a symbol of Bologna's civic pride, and, more practically, a vital piece of city infrastructure. And the Modenese soldiers, in a moment of historical absurdity, decided that was the trophy they wanted. They grabbed the bucket and, incredibly, managed to escape back to Modena with their prize. Bologna, understandably, was furious. This wasn't just theft. It was a blatant act of humiliation, a public insult to their city's honor. They sent ambassadors to Modena, demanding the immediate and unconditional return of the bucket. Imagine the scene. Solemn Bolognese envoys dressed in their finest robes, probably red-faced with indignation, delivering a formal ultimatum about a stolen kitchen utensil. Modena, however, was not about to back down. Emboldened by their successful raid and gleeful at Bologna's outrage, they refused to return the bucket. Some accounts even suggest they put the bucket on public display in Modena, a taunting trophy of their audacity. And here's where the absurdity really kicks into high gear. Bologna, insulted, outraged, and maybe just a little bit embarrassed to be so worked up over a bucket, declared war on Modena. Yes, you heard that correctly. War over a bucket. Now, it's crucial to understand that the bucket itself wasn't the real reason for the war. It was the spark that ignited the already dry tinderbox of Guelph-Ghibelline animosity and pre-existing rivalry between Modena and Bologna. The bucket was just the excuse, the symbolic offense that pushed both sides over the edge. It was about pride, power, and proving who was top dog in the region. But still, a bucket. What followed was no joke. This wasn't some minor skirmish. The War of the Bucket, as it became ridiculously known, culminated in the Battle of Zappolino in November 1325. This was a full-scale medieval battle involving thousands of soldiers on each side. Bologna, being a larger and wealthier city, mustered a significantly larger army, estimated at around 30,000 men, while Modena fielded a smaller but still substantial force of around 7,000. The battle itself was fierce and bloody. Despite being outnumbered, the Modenese army, led by the skilled condottiero Passerino Bonacolsi, proved to be far more effective. They employed clever tactics and superior cavalry, completely outmaneuvering the larger Bolognese force. The Battle of Zappolino was a decisive victory for Modena. The Bolognese army was routed, suffering thousands of casualties, with estimates ranging from 2,000 to as high as 10,000 dead. Modena, in stark contrast, suffered far fewer losses. The victory was so complete that the Modenese forces even advanced and briefly raided Bolognese territory. They could have potentially captured Bologna itself, but for reasons historians still debate, perhaps logistical concerns, or maybe a lack of long-term strategic goals beyond humiliating Bologna, they decided to stop short of a full siege. Instead, they returned to Modena, victorious, laden with spoils, and still clutching that bucket. The War of the Bucket officially ended with no major territorial changes. Bologna remained a Guelph city, Modena a Ghibelline city. No treaties were signed about buckets, no formal apologies were issued for bucket theft. The bucket, the absurd catalyst for this conflict, remained firmly in Modenese hands. And incredibly, it's still there today. If you visit Modena, you can actually see the bucket, or at least what is believed to be the bucket. It's displayed in the Torre della Ghirlandina, the city's iconic leaning tower, a bizarre memento of a truly bizarre war. It serves as a lasting, slightly embarrassing, but undeniably fascinating reminder that even the silliest of pretexts can ignite real conflict when deeper tensions are already simmering beneath the surface. So, what can we learn from the War of the Bucket? On the surface, it's a hilarious anecdote, a testament to the absurdity of human conflict. But digging deeper, it reveals something more profound about historical context, political rivalries, and the power of symbols. A seemingly trivial act, like stealing a bucket, could become a focal point for long-standing animosities, escalating into a real war with real casualties. It reminds us that history is often stranger than fiction, and that beneath the grand narratives of empires and revolutions, there are countless stories of bizarre incidents, unexpected outcomes, and buckets that sparked wars. The War of the Bucket. A ridiculous name for a surprisingly real and bloody conflict. A reminder that history is full of unexpected twists and turns, and that sometimes the most fascinating stories are found in the strangest places. From a petty theft to a full-blown battle, the tale of the War of the Bucket is a testament to the human capacity for both the absurd and the deadly serious. It's a story that makes you laugh, makes you scratch your head, and maybe, just maybe, makes you think a little differently about the past. So, did you enjoy this dive into the wacky world of the War of the Bucket? Did it surprise you? Did it make you want to steal a bucket? Just kidding. If you did enjoy it, give that like button a good whack. And don't forget to subscribe to the Wonder Box for more amazing and unexpected stories from history, science, and the wonderfully weird world around us. Click that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Thanks for exploring with us.